Okay, good evening and welcome to chapter number 19 of The Living Marriage. We're starting lesson 6. It's called Embracing Relationship. There are two sections in this section. Part 1 is called Midos of the Home. Even though this book is really talking about marital intimacy, as he said numerous times, as he says here in the introduction to this section, he says, um, only when a couple has developed a proper relationship, which they nurture throughout their everyday life, will they have a foundation to ascend the ladder of holiness through intimacy. Developing such a relationship requires a couple to embrace the midos of relationship. This lesson will focus on several attributes that rest at the heart of marriage. So these two short chapters over here are going to be dedicated to talking about Shalom Bayis in general, meaning outside of the bedroom, the foundations of a marriage, as he calls it. And he says if you don't have these foundations in place, it's impossible to ascend the ladder of holiness through intimacy. These are the building blocks. If you don't have Shalom Bayis, nothing to do with the bedroom, nothing to do with physical contact and things like that. If you don't have that, you're not going to have a marriage. That's what it's built on. Now, when I went to Shalom Bayis to Chassan classes, Rosh Hashiva, Yaakov Friedman, he told us that he gave us 7 pointers on Shalom Bayis, like he's going to talk about in these two chapters. Things outside of the bedroom. Although he admitted that even though there were 7 things that he talked about, and he didn't talk about intimacy, he said intimacy is responsible for 95% of the success of a marriage. So even he admitted, he quoted from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, that 95% of the marriage is contingent on your success in the bedroom. Couples that are successful in the bedroom will have a great marriage. If you're not successful in the bedroom, even if you don't make the 10 dumb mistakes that Ben Sion Schaefer writes in his new book, the 10 dumb mistakes that smart couples make. Even if you don't make any of those mistakes, you follow Ben Sion Schaefer precisely, and not make any of those mistakes, you will just have 5% of a good marriage. You will be missing 95% of a good marriage. So that's important to note. And also what he says over here, that the foundations of a marriage are built on Shalom Bayis, is not true, because unless you say that the 95% is only contingent if you have the 5%, to me it doesn't seem like that. But we're going to leave it as it is, and we're going to talk about what he wants to talk about in this chapter. Is midos of the home. He talks about, he says many times when people hear about a potential shidduch, their first inquiry is whether the prospect has good midos, quote unquote, as if the world is divided into two groups, those with good midos and those with bad midos. The truth is, all Jews are the children of Am Yisrael and Yaakov, and as explained by Chazal, the Gemara in Yevamos says, they are merciful, bashful, and kind. Generally speaking, all Jews have relatively good midos. So asking such a question doesn't usually provide much useful information. Every person has certain virtuous attributes and is far from complete in other areas, so most people can be described as having good midos. Okay, most Jews have good midos. As I said to my wife last night, I think Jews, so to non-Jews, are more honest people. Jews generally are more honest than the non-Jewish population. There's other midos that Jews have which are not so good, but in terms of, he thinks that Jews have better midos than the rest. And the Gemara says there are 3 midos that Klal Yisrael are good in, right? By Shanim, Rachmanim, Gomlei Chasadim. Says that's how you're nicker. It doesn't mean all midos they're good in, and those midos they happen to be better than the rest of the world in. But again, we're dealing with the Jewish world over here. So, but he says that's really not what it's all about. Everyone has good midos and bad midos. Besides, within the confines of the Jewish community, everyone has by Shalom, Rachman, and Golem. If you're born a Jew, you have those midos. But there's a lot of other midos that contribute to a good marriage. He doesn't talk about all the midos over here, but he says it's important to have chemistry. And he brings a story over here. I'm not going to read the whole story. A very famous Rosh Hashiva. I wish you would tell me who the Rosh Hashiva was. More interesting. He had a son who on the surface could be described as not having good midos. He was extroverted. He was a loud guy. I don't know, a little rough around the edges. And it was hard for him to get a shidduch, even though he was the son of Rosh Hashiva. They finally found a girl who was willing to go out with him, who had great midos, really refined. And the girl said, yeah, but he said no. The son didn't want to go out with her. Not for him, not his type. I don't know if he said that. It says that the son said that he couldn't believe someone with refined midos would want to go out with him. I think he was just saying it's not his type. And they brought him to the author of this book, Moshe Shokotovitz, who was guest and good in Shalom Bayis and intimacy, who wrote this book. The Rosh Yeshiva brought his son to him, and Moshe Shokotovitz, the author, said, "No, I don't think it's a good match either." And the Rosh Yeshiva was very angry. This is his son. No one's going out with his son. He got great shidduch for his son. Rejected her. So let's go to Stipler. Went to the Stipler. Stipler said no. He described the situation. He met the boy. Not a good shidduch. A little while later, he was in America, the Rosh Yeshiva. Someone else was suggested him, a girl from Israel. He got back, and apparently the girl was not like the first girl. She didn't have refined midos. She was probably very extroverted and loud and not sanua. So they thought it was a good idea, and the son was interested. They went back to Rav Moshe Chotovitz. They quoted the Rosh Yeshiva, said to Rav Moshe Chotovitz, maybe, Rav Moshe, you really know how to break up a good shidduch. Let's see if you can do it with this one too. Interesting Rosh Yeshiva. So he met him and the girl, and he thought it was a good idea. They were similar in characteristics and personality. They took him to Stipler also. Stipler said it was a good match. They got married. Doesn't say what happened with their marriage, but apparently he says it was a good marriage because they had similar characteristics, even though they seemed to have bad midos, right? Because they were people that, had personality and people that looked after their own needs and things like that, and they weren't, altruistic and, God-fearing. They didn't daven all day and learn all day. Maybe he was involved in business and things like that. So obviously, it's not a great person. She's not a great person, but she's looking for a working guy. But they got married, and that's what they needed. They had similar personalities, similar outlooks on life. So people who know Shalom Bayis know that it's good to have people who have a similar outlook in life. That's very important to have a similar hashkafa, because if you see things differently from a religious perspective, it makes your marriage very difficult. And just in terms of personality, even if you have the same hashkafas, it does help. I think they say opposites attract, or they say but I don't think it's opposites attract. I really think you should try to find someone that's similar to your personality. If you're an introvert person, I think you should find an introverted spouse. Extroverted, I think you should look for someone extroverted. That's my personal opinion. You'll enjoy each other more because you're gonna want to be extroverted. She's gonna be introverted. She's gonna be extroverted. You're gonna be introverted. It's not gonna work. I mean, it'll work, but it's better, And I think it's funny because I look around. I look around every marriage. I don't know most people personally, but I look around the people in my family, my wife's family, and most of the marriages, almost all the marriages, there's one spouse that's extroverted and one spouse that's introverted, which is kind of hard to understand because we believe that zivugam kasha kriyas yamsuf. Hashem makes it's like kriyas yamsuf, and Hashem, the zivug, you found your partner, your basher. The Gemara does say it's kasha kriyas yamsuf. So we all assume the meaning of the Gemara is kasha kriyas yamsuf, and just like Hashem split the Red Sea, when they left Egypt, so too he splits the Red Sea every time someone gets married. But the simple explanation of the Gemara is that it's hard for him, like kriyas yamsuf, and just like he only did kriyas yamsuf one time, that's maybe the only time he did kriyas yamsuf. So to assume that when you get married to the person you got married to, it is min hashamayim. Hashem, obviously runs this world and decided this was the best person for you to marry. Obviously, you both decided, it worked out, whatever. You asked the person, you got advice if you had doubts or whatever, but the person you're married to is not necessarily the best person for you to enjoy your life with. Whatever the reason, I'm not getting into why Hashem set you up with this person, but a lot of the times, it doesn't work out that way. You end up marrying someone who's very different than you, which is not the best. But if you're going into a relationship, my personal advice is to marry someone who's on the same personality level like you. He talks about something called counterfeit relationships. He says people can be there's two types of people, basically. One can define the value, I'm quoting him, of every single thing by what he can get out of it, making himself the central point of the world. Right, one type of person, I can meet a person, what can I get out of this person, right? How much money can I get out of this person? How much fame can I get out of this person? Can I get honor from this person, right? Such a person does not have the potential to embrace true relationships at any level because he only knows how to relate to himself as he manipulates the world around him. On the other hand, one can appreciate that each of Hashem's creations has his own value, which is not dependent on what he can get out of it. That person, true relationship can only begin once a person appreciates the value of that which is outside his own self and interacts with it according to what it actually is, not simply as a tool to further his own goals. In this way, he is relating to each thing as it truly is, and isn't twisting its definition in order to use it for his own benefit. So, there's two types of people: people that are, egocentric and selfish. They want everything. They meet a person, they meet a thing. They want to use that person or thing in order to benefit themselves. And then there's other people who take a step back and appreciate the person or that thing for what it is, and give it value, and give it honor. And then, once you appreciate it, once you give it value, then you could love that thing. You could have a relationship with that thing, which is basically what it says at the end. I'm going to talk about this. There's a big discussion. What's more important in the marriage? Or not what's more important, because the Gemara says both things are important. You're supposed to honor your spouse. You're supposed to love your spouse. It really says about the husband supposed to love his wife, and he's supposed to even honor her more than his own body. What comes first? Love comes first, or honor comes first? He deals with this at the end. We'll get to it in a second, but I believe this is what he's already hinting over here. He's saying that a person who appreciates something, honors something, right? You value and appreciate. Appreciate means you're giving value to someone else or to something. You're mechabi that thing. Then you could love it, which is exactly what he says at the end, which is what the Rambam says. The Rambam, I'll quote this Gemara. The Gemara says in Yavamos on Samach Bayis, he quotes the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan Oves Isho Kegufo Machab the Yosem Megufo Allah B'Kasav Omer Yadata Kishalom Alecha. The Gemara says, the Bayis says, someone who loves his wife like his own body. He loves his wife just as much as his own body, and he honors his wife more than his own body. Right? The pasuk about him says he's going to have peace in his tent. Shalom Bayis, presumably. The Rambam in Hilchos Ishus, Perek Ted Vav Halacha Yud Ted. You want to look it up. He quotes the Rambam. He quotes the Gemara, but he switches it around. He says kibud is before Ava. So it's problematic. Why is Rambam switching it around? Right? The Gemara, the Bayis is giving you, the recipe in order to have Shalom Bayis, and it says always Isha Gufo first, and then Mechab Yosem Gufo. So what comes first? The love, and then comes the honor. So he tries to explain this Rambam at the end. This is what he says, because really the Rambam, when you have a Gemara and you have a Rambam, which one you go with? You go with the Gemara. You have to explain the Rambam needs an explanation. So he says at the end of the chapter, a certain Talmud Chacham explained this to me in a very beautiful way. He said, love is the relationship of unity itself. However, kavod is the background that allows the love to flourish properly. Kavod is the attribute which allows one to recognize the significance of someone who is outside one's own self. Only after appreciating the value of another person can one then come to draw close to them with the unifying power of love. Therefore, it's easy to understand that the Gemara placed love first because it was explaining the relationship itself. Only then did it add the ancillary attribute of kavod. On the other hand, the Rambam placed kavod first because he was explaining how a person practically achieves this goal. As we will see, a couple first must create a proper framework of kavod, of honoring the other spouse, and then love will blossom naturally. Following the lead of the Rambam, we will also begin our discussion by explaining kavod and then returning to explain love. So, his explanation based on a certain Talmud Chacham. I wish you quoted names, because this is not it's not a bad thing. This is, he approves of this explanation. I don't know why he didn't quote the person's name. The Gemara says he's supposed to quote people's names. Bring Geula along the Gemara Megillah. Anyway, and the point is over here is that he's saying really the Gemara in Yevamos is not telling you how to have a proper relationship. It's telling you the nature of the relationship. The Rambam is telling you practically how to do it. Now, if you look at the Gemara that he quotes, I'll just read it to you again. It says, Tana Rabbanan, always Isha Guva, Mchab the Yosem Guva, Allah Vakatsa Omer Yadek Shalom Alecha. It's the simple explanation of the Gemara is telling you how to have Shalom Bayis, right? It's advising you. What's it advising you? It's just telling you the nature of a marriage. No, it's telling you how to do it. Always Gufo. That's the instruction of the Gemara. You look at the whole Gemara. The Gemara is telling you what to do to have Shalom Bayis. So the explanation doesn't sit well with me, and therefore I don't understand the Rambam. I'm just maybe there's other Rishonim that quote the Gemara verbatim. And maybe I personally think, and this is what he's getting at over here, he's saying there's people that are into themselves. They look to the world, what they can get out of it for themselves. And there's people that appreciate the other thing, the other person, and then they bring that person close to them. And that's what he's saying over here. In your marriage, you should appreciate your wife for who she is. And only after you appreciate who she is, then you can draw close and love her. I have a different explanation, and I believe this also explains why the Gemara says "Machabda yoser megufo" and "Ovo kegufo." My explanation is as follows: that I would say that love is not something which you have to work on. Love is a natural thing, right? You love someone or love something. You love certain food. You love the way the woman looks. You love her personality. You love her midos. You love something because you see those things. Those are things that stick out to you, right? When you remember the woman, you think about it in a positive way, right? When you're thinking about her in a positive way, you think about the positive attributes that she has. Every person has positive attributes and has negative attributes. So I think it's just talking about two different aspects of the person. The ava, the love, you love things that, I don't agree with this thing that he's saying that people being selfish. I think it's a problem that I think the world has, and specifically a lot of Judaism has, coming from Christianity, that we should not take things for ourselves. We shouldn't be selfish. The most important person in the world is you, and Hashem wants you to be the most important person in the world. The Mishnayos are full of this in Perkei Avos. No one cares about you more than yourself, and you have to care about yourself. To the extent that a person cares about himself, and that's the extent the person will be successful, not only in his life, but also in heavenly reward. That's, you have to care about yourself, and really it comes down to making decisions, right? Because we're confronted with making decisions on a daily basis. Sometimes people make 20,000 decisions a day. That's the average. So if you don't worry about your own decision making, you're not caring about yourself. You're not caring about yourself. Caring yourself doesn't mean that I only, meet with people that I like, and I only go after, I like to eat food for myself. No, it means that you care about yourself, not just in terms of, what you're going to enjoy, but also your duties. You care about the value of yourself. You care about yourself. And, I think it's a mistaken notion to think that a person who wants something that they like is a selfish person. Oh, a person who knows what he likes and goes after what he likes is called a person. He's a normal person. That's normal. To go away from nature and to say, oh, let me think about this person. Okay, let me honor this person. I think they have very good I don't know. They have very good yichus. Let me look at their yichus. Let me look at their from the Chashav family, things like that. I appreciate who they are, without the things that you naturally like, right? And then all of a sudden you like them. No. It's not the way it works. I think what the Gemara is saying, Ova Kagufo, right? Your body, right? When you think of your body, right? Your body just has desires. It wants things that you want, if you're in touch with your body, at least if you have the right body. So you know what you like. And Ova Kagufo. So the attributes of the wife that you like, which you naturally like about your wife, that's what you should do first. You should connect to that and think about the positives of your wife. Kibud, kavod in marriage, I think, is really talking about the other areas of your spouse, the ones that are not so good. Every person of a good marriage, you realize after a while when living with someone that they have positive traits like everybody and negative traits. And if you want to have a successful marriage, you have to do two things. First of all, you have to love the things that your body loves, kigufo, right? That your body naturally loves. That's all it's saying. Mechavda yosem gufo, meaning you have to honor her and not belittle her in those things, or she shouldn't belittle him in those things which you recognize as negative traits. That's the way it is. People have good things and they have bad things. But if you want to have a good marriage, you have to love the things, and that's the first thing. You have to love the positive things, because that's what's going to bring you close. That's what can unify you. And to make sure the negative traits of the spouse doesn't detract from that love, you have to honor that person and give them the respect they deserve. If they have faults, don't mention them, or mention them only in a constructive way. Give constructive criticism. A man has to be very careful with his wife not to give criticism at all, unless, it's done in the right way. You don't have to think about it. It's important that you get across to tell your wife what you like and what you want, Because if you don't have communication with your wife, you got nothing. But it has to be done in the right way. It requires a lot of thinking and planning. So that's really all the Gemara is saying, that first you attach the positive things. That's what can unify you, right? You love things that make you happy. So you look if, if your wife is attractive, or maybe she's not completely attractive. There's parts of her that you do find attractive. And then you look at her personality, some of her personality traits you like, some you don't like, her midos, her character traits, some that you like, some you don't like. And the ones that you recognize as negative, if you know the person well, you're going to recognize they have a lot of negative traits. So, honor that person and don't belittle them in those other traits which are not good, or those parts of them that are not good. That's really all it means. That's why Yoser Megufo, because your goof is naturally attracted to the things that it likes, things that it doesn't like, that it finds negative, right? That has to be more than what your body can tolerate. That's why you have to honor her more than your body. That's what it means, Chazal. The last thing he talks about, he doesn't talk about what the positive traits really are in marriage, besides loving and honoring. He does talk about what midah you should not run after in a good marriage, and it's chesed. A lot of people think this. I think I was taught this. I don't remember exactly who taught me, but I remember reading various books. They all said that chesed is the primary midah in a marriage, or vatronus, right? You forego what you want, or you do chesed with the other spouse. He quotes over here, Hagon Atzadik Rav Dov Yafa Zatzal. I don't know exactly who this is. Apparently he's not alive anymore. Once told me that we need to scream out that Jewish marriage is not based on the midah of chesed. The damage this mistake causes grows from year to year and must completely uproot this confusion. There is absolutely no source in the words of Chazal or the Rishonim that marriage is based on chesed. Wow, it's pretty impressive words that he's saying over here, that marriage is not based on chesed. And he explains the reason it's not based on chesed is because when you have chesed in a marriage, it's like, giving to a poor person, right? When you give to a poor person, a lot of people describe marriage as the giver and the taker. The man is the giver, and the woman is the taker. The man is the zachar, the woman is the nekeva, the nekev, the whole. So that's the way they understand marriage. And the man is to give, and the woman is to receive. He says, if you look at tzedakah, right, you're not supposed to tell the poor person that you're giving them tzedakah. The highest level of tzedakah, you shouldn't let them know who is it coming from, and they shouldn't know, right, who gave it to them, because it's embarrassing. When you take a present from someone, when someone does chesed for you, you feel great, right? But the other person feels very lowly and embarrassed that they took it from you. And even if both spouses are doing chesed and giving back to each other, it becomes a competition. Who can do more chesed than the other one? He doesn't say you shouldn't give to your spouse. As he clarifies, you should give freely to your spouse. However, it shouldn't come from the midah that I'm giving chesed to them. I'm doing a nice thing. You should give, right? I think basically it means you should give with an ayin yafa. Ayin yafa means you should give in a generous way, meaning you should include your spouse in your life. I think that's what it means. Meaning, give her things that, and like he brings from a Gemara in Beitza. The Gemara in Beitza says that someone who gives a matana, a present to his friend, you have to l'sarach la'odil. You have to let them know that you gave them a present. So Tosfos in Maseches Beitza, yes. What do you mean? When you give stuff, you're not supposed to let them know. He says it depends. He says, "V'davka matana shenoten alidei avash ena makabel mizbayish." He says, giving that is an expression of love does not cause embarrassment. On the contrary, it must inform the receiver, because this will only increase the love between them, right? The receiver will then respond by expressing his love, and their unity will only grow. Love is a unifying connection and is the foundation of the entire home. So when you give out of love to somebody, right, to show them their love, right, you give a present, you give flowers to your wife, you give her chocolates, right, you give her balloons on her birthday, you make a nice birthday party, you give her a nice gift on Shalosh Regalim, and also on her birthday, and also on your anniversary. And she's giving you gifts, right? Make sure she gives you gifts also. Don't just give her all the gifts. She should be giving you gifts also. But they're gifts out of love. You're not doing it because you want a chesed to her, right? You're usually a chesed. People do chesed, right? They're doing above and beyond what they really want to do. They're doing something that's going to be beneficial to the other person, even though it's hurting them, right? When you give a gift to draw a person close to you, showing you that you love them or you appreciate them, right? Giving them chocolates or flowers to your wife. So you're showing her that you love her. It's bringing her closer to you. It's not, showing, I pity you when I'm giving you these flowers. It's not what it represents, right? If you're doing it out of chesed, right? And people can tell the difference. People can tell when you're doing something, when there's a marriage where one person is on a higher level than the other person. Sometimes the other person feels, right? Even in the bedroom, the carving of the bedroom, right? If one person wants, the other person doesn't want. I'm not saying you shouldn't be together at that time, but if it's always like that, right? One person's not interested, the other person, and he's going to do it anyway. You can't let the other person know, even if you're going to do it anyway, because you have to fill the ksuba and things like that. You shouldn't let the other person know that it's a chesed. You should do it because the ksuba demands you to do that. But once a person knows that it's a chesed and they feel that they're below you, right? It's better not to do the act itself because that feeling of embarrassment is worse. So giving out of love and love, right? You give in a situation where you want to unify the two of you. That's right. You give right. If you're eating a steak, right? You got to order a steak at a meal, and your wife happens to like steak also, but she didn't feel uncomfortable ordering a steak because she's a woman, and it's expensive. You don't have the money, so you order the steak because you're the man, and then she ordered a little bit of schnitzel or whatever, and she's finished with her schnitzel, and you want to give her some of your steak, but you don't want to give her your steak. You want it for yourself, so you give her the steak. You're chesed. You want to do it for chesed for your wife. That's not because it's not you're hurting yourself. Anytime you're hurting yourself, right? That's chesed. If you're doing it because you want to extend yourself to someone else, you extend your love to someone else to show them that you love them, right? And really the determinant is whether you want to give the gift. I know buying jewelry for my wife, the beginning of the marriage, because it was Shana Rishona, right? And there's a mitzvah of a simach zisha, right? I would buy a lot of jewelry. I had to work my way up, buying the cheaper jewelry. Everyone starts off with the cheaper jewelry, the 925 sterling silver. And then, eventually, hopefully you get the gold. And I bought diamond rings for my wife, a diamond ring. I just bought a diamond ring recently for her. A diamond necklace. It should be going up. But you can't start off like that because if you're starting off like that, your first year of marriage, you're giving her diamonds already. It's only going to go down from there, and you're doing more than you can do. So you have to build yourself up, and you build up. You buy the sterling silver in the beginning. You buy different types, see what she likes, and you're doing it because you want to show your love to her. And you really want to do it. You have to really, really want to do it, right? You have to build it up, and you can build in yourself. It's like building wealth, is buying products that you like. You have to build that up and show. It can't be more above your capabilities financially and capabilities of your desires. But in a truly loving marriage, you have to work your way up and give things that will cause love between you and your wife. And it has to be, if you feel that you're going above your means, it's usually not a good sign. It's usually not something you should be giving to your wife. She'll know that you're going above your means, and you're giving chesed to her, right? Because how much do flowers really cost? Not that much. How much do chocolates really cost? They don't cost that much. So when she gets that from you, she knows you're not overextending yourself. When you overextend yourself, people feel it's not really from him. He just wants to do chesed. He wants to do a mitzvah with me. I'm his ticket to Olam Haba. But if you give something cheaper and you build yourself up, because then eventually I like getting expensive things for my wife and seeing expensive jewelry on my wife, because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel that I have a wife that's taken care of, that I took care of her, and I, make her feel good, and that gives a good feeling to me. So you have to build that up and build the love in your relationship by not overextending yourself. I think that's very important. What he mentions over here, don't do chesed with her. Don't overextend yourself for your wife, and you should be fair. Like, if your wife's expecting too much of you in the house, some husbands don't do anything in the house. Some people like me do a lot in the house. So you shouldn't, and it was hard for me to tell my wife, listen, I'm doing too much. I'm overextending myself in the house. I can't do anymore. So you have to know where you are and don't overextend yourself. Do what you're capable of doing. You have to do the chiyuvim of the ksuba, provide her with food, sustenance, and the proper times in the bedroom. But, other gray areas when it comes to, building your love and building the Shalom Bayis in your house, don't overextend yourself. Don't do chesed. And I agree with him 100% on this point. I think it's a big mistake in the world. People think that the man is the giver, the woman is the taker, and chesed is the foundation of marriage. It's not the foundation of marriage. And he says that over here very clearly, and I agree with him 100% on that point. Hope you enjoyed today's lecture. See you in the next one.